I'm on Twitch.
This is Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty.
Welcome back to Soul Citizens. I'm Griffin Gaming RPG, and we're back today. It's August the 18th, and we are happy to be back with you guys. And I am joined with two of the elder statesman of our group. I'm here today with fastcart FC. How are you, fastcart?
Are you calling me old?
I tried to find the diplomatic way of saying that. I didn't want to say the dinosaurs. We've been around for a while.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
We used to use our feet to drive the family car to the grocery store. So that's how old I am. So I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Hope you're doing well too.
Good. I'm doing pretty good. And also, we're joined today by one of our oldest members. And I don't mean old in the sense of age. I mean, he's been with us for a long time, but we haven't had him here in a while. And we're always happy whenever he's able to stop in. The one and the only Younique. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. fastcart. Good to see you again. Griffin, thanks.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm back after a long hiatus. So
he's back in black. He's back in black. Show him what you got on. So you said you wanted to show him what you had on right now.
Look at that.
He's got
it. Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah,
he's styling today. He always has some.
Whatever you do, don't do what Kawadi did. But yeah,
I don't know what he did, but all I know is the doorbell rang and I opened the door and FedEx guy handed me a package and I was looking at him and he had on this shirt. I had to chase him down the street and wrestle him to the ground and take it from him.
That's funny. Well, we are glad to have you here with us today. And guys, we're going to be, first of all, we want to give out to the video that you guys just watched by MichaelCaro. It was called, actually, Death of a Spaceman, and it was highlighted as one of the MPV videos on RSI's website. And so it was a little different. And as you guys know, the topic for today is Death of a Spaceman, but we call it Death of a Spaceman Revisited. We're going to be going back and talking about something that people hear all the time. What is Death of a Spaceman? Why is it important? Is it the same as it was when it was first announced? This document goes all the way back to 2013. It's a design document that was written by Chris Roberts to let us get an idea of the vision of what he had of what life and death will be like in Star Citizen. So even though this is about Death of a Spaceman, we're going to be talking about life and eventually, as you saw in that video, how eventually you progress to the point of death. So that's going to be kind of the thing we're sharing today. And we're going to kind of go back and talk about this from that period, 2013, watch a couple of videos where CIG has deliberately spent time on calling all devs to talk about what this game mechanic looks like. It's kind of a mixture of old and new. And Chris Roberts is kind of doing a little bit of a throwback and taking kind of what was the best of how games were built back in the day, and then trying to find a way to make it work in a way so that we will be more challenged. And also give greater consideration to how we play Star Citizen, because playing it right now is like playing with Monopoly money and Monopoly time. It's just kind of all out there and you can do whatever you want to. And there's not a lot of repercussions for making bad decisions. But Death of a Spaceman is going to, and it has already started to introduce that element to the game. So I want to peel these two guys' brains today, because I'm going to be giving them questions and they're going to be sharing their thoughts with you, but we're also going to share with you what CIG has said over the years about this particular thing. So fastcart's going to put a link in. In fact, he already has. The link is there for you guys. This is the design document. Once again, it was written in 2013 by Chris Roberts. I want you to click on it and just save it. If you've never looked at it before, click on it, keep it, because it's a very long document. A lot of times we kind of read off these things that CIG has done, but this one's super, super long. And it goes into a lot of background history and detail into what he wants to do. It's because most of you, we know you guys are familiar with this idea of Death of a Spaceman. What we are going to do is we're going to go through the Q&A section of it. There are about 14 questions that were in this particular document that we're going to read through with you guys. And hopefully it'll answer some general questions for you. And then we're going to take a look at these videos. So that's what we're going to do right now. So let's just go ahead and get ourselves all prepped and ready. And here is the first of, let's see. Oh, by the way, this is the page. If you guys are seeing it, if you've got the link, that's what it looks like when you get there. Believe me, there's a lot of reading behind it. Okay. So let's do this very first question. What qualifies as death? Not ejecting before your ship blows up, taking a headshot during boarding, having your ejected pilot or escape pod targeted and destroyed while floating in space. Can you guys think of any other ways people would would die in this game? Other than
In
waiting
this game?
for it? Other than waiting for it? Yeah. Is there any other way that people can die?
Falling through the elevator into the center of the earth.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Falling inside of a planet for no reason. No, suffocating. That's one.
Yeah, taking your helmet off.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh, no, not taking your helmet off. Forgetting to put your helmet on.
Forgetting to put it on.
That got
Well,
me.
both of those. I've seen both.
Yeah, we've done both. You're right. Yeah, we have.
Freezing to death, trying to mine.
Yeah. Breathe, asphyxiation, a lot of ways.
Colossal.
Yeah.
but I think one of the more
I'm gonna call people out the show.
But I think one of the more important details about this document is that this was in response to people wondering what happens when you die in the game. Because this is back in, people have been wondering since 2012, and then Chris Harper decided to put this document. So I think this is in response to the community asking that question so often.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the things in the design document that Chris talks about is the idea of how old school games, when you died, there was a feeling of loss. And then he also compared talking about games like Dark Souls, where when you die in that game, when you've made progress, if you die at the wrong location, you lose a lot of that progress, and you actually have to get thrown back and start back over in an area. When Dark Souls first came out, one of the words that people first said about it was that it was punishing, that it was brutal, that it was difficult. Now, they're not trying to do that with Star Citizen, but what they are doing is taking a little bit of the old days when you had 3 lives and that was it, and a little bit of what Dark Souls is, and finding something in the middle, something in there that makes it challenging, that makes life valuable, that makes you consider your next move, or what did you learn from when you did do something. And even then, unlike now, while we're in the PTU and we're doing this alpha thing, you die and you just come back, right? Everything's there and nothing really has happened. But because they've structured this thing with our DNA, it's going to be limited. And in fact, that DNA can start to degenerate. And maybe when you come back, there'll be other issues over time. We don't know whether you're going to come back 3 times, 7 times, 13 times. Maybe there will be variables. Maybe Younique came back last time. Maybe he died finally after his 7th death, where maybe I died on my 4th. Maybe because something so substantial happened to me that I didn't get 7 lives. I hope that they do make a variable like that so that nobody can predict. We can't just say, well, I know I've got 9 lives, right? I actually want it to be that I could have something cataclysmic, catastrophic, I should say, happen. That maybe if I had acted a different way or only died certain ways, I might have stuck around maybe 11 times. But the fact that I did something that was, I got blown up in such a way that I just got obliterated, something like that. I don't know, but I don't know. I just hope that they create it so that you really don't know how many lives you have left later. Does that kind of make sense?
It does to me. And one thing that Chris Roberts said in one of the 10 for the Champions around this time this document came out, he said that there may be a way to get extra lives. Like if you go to a clinic and pay more money than typical, you may get you may be able to have that character last longer. So they're thinking about that too. Well, at least they were.
Yeah. Citizen Ninja puts an interesting thing here. He says maybe what happens if when you die outside of the range of the regen signals. That's interesting. Interesting prospect. We'll have to see what they do. This next question, number 2, kind of goes down that road a little bit. It's a little longer. We'll see how many lives will I get. The exact number of lives will be balanced as development of the game progresses. The intention is to allow multiple deaths before you're properly dead. So expect to wake up in the med bay at least a half dozen times, if not more. And getting to this point won't be common unless you're participating in a lot of boarding actions or flying in areas where there is no law and order. Please note that it will not ultimately be a single static encounter, taking different risks and dying in different ways to impact your overall survivability or different rates. Remember, the key to Star Citizen is visceral realism. So while the system works this way under the hood, there's not going to be a life counter at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so there you go, right? That's another possibility. Here's another question. What happens on a disconnect? or rage quit? Do I lose a life? When you disconnect or otherwise quit and fight, the server attempts to take you into an autopilot. If you're in a space instance, i.e., not already in warp autopilot, and close enough to a hostile, the server will attempt to gain enough separation to enter autopilot. If it's successful, the server will then place your ship back on the planet you last landed on. If not, and you haven't managed to reconnect to your AI-controlled ship before the hostile destroys your ship, it is assumed you ejected successfully and will be returned to the last planet you landed on. If you have insurance, you will have a new hull waiting for you. We will monitor players' disconnects, and if we feel like you are gaming the system, we may enact a death penalty on you and decrease your internal life count. Okay. So, I don't know, Younique, do you think that's pretty cool if, like, for some reason you get disconnected in the internet, they do have something there to kind of give you a little bit of grace in there?
Yeah, because, I mean, it is a networked game and computers suck when they start failing. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So you want something to be able to recover that, and they can tell if you're disconnecting. So I think that's fair.
Yeah.
If you're trying to abuse the system, then you shouldn't get penalized.
Yeah. Drakazox, thank you for the gifted sub to Younique Gaming. I'm sure he appreciates that. Yeah, he gave you a gift sub.
Thank you. Hey.
He gave you a gift sub. Okay, number 4.
Nice. We got nice people in this channel.
Yeah, they hook us up. What are the penalties for targeting an ejected player? Players who target helpless ejected pilots in civilized space that don't have an official UEE death bounty on their heads are the scum of the universe and will be treated as such by the authorities and marked for death by other players. Pilots who shoot down ejection pods will have trouble navigating civilized space because the police will be on their tails, and they'll have trouble in the lawless regions too because there will be heavy government bounties on their heads in addition to any player bounties that might be added. So FC, you hear that? Don't be shooting escape pods.
Yeah, this reminds me of the time during Xenothreat. I was in the turret of a hammerhead or something. I think it was Jade's hammerhead. Anyway, so we were fighting, and people, you know how it's all hectic and everything like that. People sometimes would get in the way of the turret, or I would not aim the turret away from them in time, and we would get a warning.
Right.
And if you keep on persisting, you'll get a criminal tag. So I wonder how will CIG handle like accidental death or accidental kills, stuff like that. If they will handle it.
That's interesting.
You just gotta be careful.
Well, I mean, like in the game right now, if you kill someone, you're given an option to whether you want to give them the crime stat. It pops up on your screen and says, do you want to file a crime stat against this person? So they could do that. But in the case of this, it almost sounds like this is automatic. In other words, if you go after a pod, it's automatic. Now, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Younique, let me ask you a question. Do you think that this will be a guardrail for players, or do you think players are just going to, they're not going to care? They're just going to shoot people's escape pods from whatever?
So I think it depends. Like now it asks you, do you want to report this person? But when Death of a Spaceman is in the game, I think they're going to take that out, right?
Okay.
It's like, why, if you do it, you're done.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Or maybe if you're in the same party as somebody, it would ask you.
Maybe ask you then. Yeah.
Right. But if you're not in the same party, there's no asking. You just.
Okay.
So what you're saying is, I got to be careful where I aim.
Well, you should be doing that anyway.
One someday coming up.
That's funny. Okay. All right. The next one. How long do I float in space before being rescued? When you eject in an active battle instance, you can float and watch the action. You can activate your rescue beacon at any time. And when there are no hostiles within a certain distance of the game will fade out, then fade back up with a little time later, and have an in-engine cinematic of your pilot pod being tractored to a rescue and recovery vehicle. The game will then cut to the last planet you saved on, and you looking at your new replacement ship, assuming you have insurance.
Yeah, they changed that. You wake up in the bed now.
Yeah. Well, I know. I guess what they're saying is you'll wake up and your ship will be there. But I think that like you said, that's changed because if your ship is destroyed, well, I guess so. If your ship was destroyed, but if your ship was if you ejected and your ship is still out there, then that's your opportunity to go out and get your ship again. But if you want to do that, I guess. I think that they said that they want to make it so that people recover their ships more than reclaim their ships because you can impact your insurance by doing that too much. And they want to get the repair mechanic and stuff, everything. They want to have a money sink for you to do stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that aspect. But yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Years ago, I don't know if
I think.
Go ahead, Younique. Go ahead.
Oh, I think this question and answer was written before we knew about Archie Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
With Archie Falcon in the game, that rescue time is about 8 seconds.
That's true. That's true.
He's Johnny on the spot.
Mm-hmm. He's happy to come help you.
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you this question, guys. Years ago, we showed this on a show like 2 years ago. CIG actually put out a demonstration, a tech video. It was a tech video, and it showed. I think it was a Retaliator ejecting its pods. And an Avenger came up, captured it, and took it away. So my question is, do you think in here, now mind you guys, keep in mind, guys, this is 13 years old, this thing we're reading, okay? That video came out later I'm talking about. Do you think that a lot of stuff the CIG did in their early days, like you just mentioned before, that may have been their original idea, but it's changed over the years. It seems like now they want that to happen, that players go rescue you instead of a cinematic. Do you guys think that will be the case? Somebody puts out a beacon and there's medical people that go out there to get them? Or do you think that they'll stick with the cinematic? Or do you think that they'll do the cinematic if nobody shows up? It gives you an option. You know what I mean? You've been waiting 15 minutes. Yeah. You've been waiting 15 minutes. Nobody comes, but you got to maybe pay for it. You think maybe?
Yeah. Either one could work, or like I said, having both of them in there, you have some sort of time limit, and or just ask the player, because you want me to.
You don't want to log out and wake up in space Archie next 3 days,
right?
Yeah,
okay. Eventually it gets old, right? You just get bored of floating around in space.
Yeah,
you will eventually run out of oxygen too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, right? If you don't have any oxypens on you, yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah, they're going to implement that your spacesuit only holds so much oxygen, and
that's right. Which is why, for those of you who wonder why they give you oxygen pins, and some of you may have used them before when you've gotten low on oxygen when you're walking around on the moon or something with no atmosphere, but it does help to keep one of those suckers with you, just so you'll know. What happens with a headshot in a boarding? A headshot is more likely to be fatal than any other injury. Boarding a ship is extremely risky proposition. You can gain a valuable prize by capturing another player's property, but you're putting yourself at the most risk possible. It's possible you'll just lose an eye or a jaw, but there's also a very small chance you'll take a laser to the brain and be dead forever. Taking a headshot while defending a ship is usually less fatal. Defending ships will allow the casualties more immediate access to medical facilities. So certain types of injuries can create a different level of death, it sounds like, in this particular case. Younique, let me ask you this. A lot of people have always talked about boarding ships. I always think boarding ships is very dangerous. I know people look for the excitement of it. I look for the other side to be on the defending side, because as far as I'm concerned, that door is only wide enough for one person to come through. And I always remember in Star Wars when the stormtroopers were coming up to the prison sequence and Han Solo and them, they held off all those jokers in that elevator for a long time because you can only come through one at a time. So, I mean, do you think people will be willing to do boarding to ships because they actually want to try to capture the ship? You think they'll take that risk?
I think people will. I mean, that's going to be some gameplay, and there'll be some kind of reasons to do it, even if it's a mission that you get to go board the ship. So the group is going to go do that. Not my favorite action when I think through it from a military aspect at all. I'd rather be on the defending side, but also on the defending side, they've got the ship self-destruct as in their back pocket. So if they pull that, it's like, well, if I'm gonna die anyway, I'm gonna take all y'all with me. You know.
Yeah.
I hear that.
So that's how I grew up in my family.
I hear you. FC, what do you think? You think people will take the risk of doing boardings?
Oh yeah, I think people are taking risks. Well, if people would take risks now if we were in the game. Like what's that ship called? The Centurion? No, the Legionnaire. Legionnaire is a boarding ship specifically designed for this. So I don't know how many ships that they sold, but yeah, I think people are looking forward to that gameplay whenever it gets into the game.
Yeah, I mean, boarding is more profitable, right? I mean, if you can actually take the ship, and take all of the cargo, not just a portion of the cargo, that exponentially does increase, the idea of doing it. It'll be interesting to see how players, will they be willing to take that risk, especially if they've died maybe 3 or 4 times already? Am I going to be willing to be that guy in the front if I've died several times already? Or is it better to put that new guy, how many times have you died in this game? None? Okay, you get in the front. Maybe that'll
It'll be like Doctor Who. How many regions have you had?
Right. That point.
Okay, let's hit this next one here. This is a big one. How will you counteract griefing? We believe the system will actually disincentivize griefers. If you're a player who wants to camp out in a safe area to kill new players, you'll quickly have a bounty on your head, and legal PvP will be authorized on you. If you target ejected pilots, lethal force on your ejected pilot can be authorized too. Attempting to grief new players will probably hasten your character's death a lot quicker than with new players you're trying to terrorize. We feel that by giving harsh penalties to people that target ejected pilots, allowing most injuries to be survivable, letting players upgrade for survivability to their specifications will help reduce the incentive to grief. But we're also aware that everything will need to be balanced once the game goes live. So that's our most important promise. We will continue to balance this system so that it works rather than allowing it to become a tool for players who want to make the game difficult for others. We'll see. That's my response to that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
As long as they're trying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they take some good feedback, because my first thing is like, you detect their griefers and validate it. -2 on the internal death count straight away, right? Yeah. Lock them up in prison, but also take away 2 of their lives if they can possibly have.
Wow.
So if they continue, they die pretty quick.
Wow.
The thing is, if people are participating in the activity, I don't think they would care about the death count, personally.
Well, I don't know, because if they implement it all and it's diminishing returns. So if you have 100 of anything and you get 80% back after you die because that's what you got inherited, and if you get, they said half a dozen times, so I'm gonna just round it to 6, right? So if you grief me, if I killed you, but you got detected in grief, and they take off 2 points for that, you just lost 3 counters. So you're down to 3 now instead of 6, right? That's what I'm saying. It's like if my team manages to kill you, even though you were griefing, you've lost 3 lives. So the next time you die doing the same thing, now you're down to 80% of your gear, and if you keep doing it, you'll be right. You just keep losing stuff.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get off the rails here, but I think anyone who does participate in those activities probably aren't looking to stay in the game long term anyway.
Yeah, probably. But if they keep losing stuff, they won't have enough to stay in the game because they can't afford new ships to come back. You just keep losing money and gear and ships, and maybe you pull it off 2 or 3 times, and now you got to go out and mine for 3 weeks before you can buy another starter ship or something. I don't know.
And Younique brings up some good points here, and I'm one of those people that dying means something to me, and it has nothing to do with, it has more to do with I'm a role player. And so I actually want my character to survive for as long as possible. Where there are other players who don't care how long their characters live.
Yeah, they're looking for you specifically.
Right. And so the question becomes, and I think Younique's point is right. He says that they are going to have to continue to tweak it and balance it and try to find that balance. You don't swing the pendulum too far to the left or to the right. You have to try to find what works best. And I'm curious, in today's climate of how people like playing PvP now, what that pendulum's going to look like. You know, what will be the deterrent for someone who, under any other circumstance, would grief. And now there's something that happens that makes them maybe not do it like they were going to do it before. I'm not saying that they'll stop. And, you know, when I say grief, I'm just saying, what is it that's going to challenge them? Because for me, I already set a challenge. I just want to stay alive. But this person doesn't care about life in the game, if that's what they want to do. So I don't know what it's going to be. I'm not suggesting it. I'm just saying it'll be interesting, to Younique's point, where that balance finally lands, you know, when they do it.
I think the balance is you're not going to stop it. Mm-hmm. And I'm only tossing that, hey, take 2 lives away in that particular scenario based on this text is math wins all arguments. So I'm a big math guy. Make sure that they are thinking a little bit outside of the box just so that they can slow it down some, right? So if they can't do it as much, then that means your character actually lives longer on average, right? You get more of your gameplay the way you want it versus the griefers the way that they want it.
I think the balance will change anyway as the game progresses on. Like whatever the balance is when 1.0 comes out, it may change by the time 1.1, 1.2 comes out. So I think it'll be a continuing thing that CIG will look at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. How can I reduce my chances of dying? Ship upgrades will include a variety of systems designed to increase the survivability of a vehicle loss, including improved ejection systems, improved spacesuits and personal shielding, better power plant cores to give more time to escape, various automated systems so that you can set your fighter to eject you after a certain amount of damage has been suffered. Wow, that'd be cool. There will also be an upgrade system surrounding your battle damage. If your character loses an eye or an arm, and you would like a natural replacement rather than a cybernetic-looking implant, you'll be able to pursue these in certain markets. Additionally, there may be certain medical procedures or limb organ replacements that can increase your lifespan, effectively add a few lives back. That's a lot.
What I was referring to.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
It's ambitious.
Yeah. I mean, my answer is just stay home.
I was going to say, if you want to stay alive, don't play the game.
You can play it. You can play it.
Just stay at home and stay in your ship.
I'll buy something. I'll sell something. But I'm not going out to space.
Yeah.
Stay in your hab. Stay in your hangar.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, and I hear you, Flero. You know, you could say get good. Yeah, get good is that's the default statement. Don't mean squat. Because there are things that you can also die from that you have no control over. You know, this isn't just about PvP. There are these things that can happen where you die. And if you take a ship, for example, that's not prepared to go into, let's say, an environmentally dangerous area, like we're talking about Pyro, we know that there's this whole thing with the solar burst that happened there. If you go in and don't bring on the right type of armor, certain places, if you don't bring the certain type of protective wear because of heat or cold, those could be factors for yourself that, you know, people just used to run around in their armored flight suit, not knowing this is the time to break out that, what's it called, the Kharkov or whatever it is, I forget the different, the Nabokov, to break out that thing. You know, right now we don't think about it, we don't use them, it's not a big deal. But later on, to Younique's point, even paying attention to how much oxygen you have within a suit, how much time that you have, all those things can be variables that will help reduce the possibility of dying. But if you just go running out there with just, you know, your noob suit on, and that's including your ship. If your ship is a stock-based ship, if you don't do those improvements to it, those are things that can help you live longer in the game when it's all said and done.
Like also, the difference between wearing a flight suit, light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor.
Yep. Absolutely.
I outfit my mole with Navicom suits.
Yeah, that's the way to go. I remember one time we were out doing something, and I wish I had one because we were trying to salvage some. I think we were trying to transfer the containers off of it because they were fully loaded with stuff, Younique. And I was out there freezing to death or burning up, whatever it was. You know, I needed one of those environmental suits, and I had to stop working and keep going inside because it was nighttime. It was like 200 and something below zero, and it was terrible. And I wished I did have that doggone flight suit with me that time when I was working.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it looks on the mole, the side pods
Mhm.
look like they are
They're
encased in
perfect for that.
glass,
Mhm.
but they're not
You're
encased.
outside. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
you're
You're right.
outside, so if you don't really realize that, and you get out there and you got the wrong
Yep.
suit, you're freezing pretty
Yep.
quick.
That's right. Good point. Good point. Okay. Is there any way to opt out of the death system? There is no way to opt out of the death in a persistent world. But remember, the Star Citizen will include options for running your own server. We'll see about that. We'll allow
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
to
right.
option to
Yeah,
set
we
the
haven't heard about
game
that in a while.
to infinite lives in that case. Here's the way you don't die in the game. Play Arena Commander.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's what we have Arena Commander
Or
for.
you know, the infamous PvP slider. You slide that to 0, right?
Oh my God. You're right. All right.
Yeah, they talk about that. It's not gonna happen.
Next question. Will multi-person crews be able to escape the destruction of their ships? Yes. All spacecraft in Star Citizen are being designed to allow crew members to eject or otherwise abandon ship.
Unless you're on a direct ship.
Yeah, that's something to be aware of. When we were on the Idris in the last patch, one of the things I was very impressed with the ship and the design of it, and you get into the scale of this thing. But I also became very much aware of how it's going to be important to know your ship well, whatever ship you're on. If Captain Younique says, "All right, y'all, abandon ship," you better know where the escape pods are. You know what I'm saying? Just something as simple as that, or even if it's just that you're going to EVA out as quickly as possible. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to do the what's it called? The black. It's the the reclaimer mission, guys. Black Kite, the Black Kite mission in the game right now. There's this mission where you have to go out to this pirated reclaimer. You have to do, I won't say what you have to do because I don't want to spoil the mission, but at the end of the mission, you have to destroy the reclaimer. And you can do that one of two ways. You can do it either by obviously shooting it, which takes a while, or you can do it by detonating it. But when you're set that timer, if you don't know how to get off a reclaimer quickly, I've seen people blow themselves up because they forget or they make the wrong turn. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, knowing your ship will make a big difference when it comes to escaping at the particular time. And some ships don't have escape pods, like you said, fastcart. You know?
Yeah. So that means, finding a schematic of a ship before and studying it before you go do a mission like that.
Yeah. What they say in the theater of Younique, make sure you know where the exit signs are.
Oh yeah.
or a plane when you board a plane.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Let's see. Can I rescue or tractor in an ally? Yes. If you have room and you can recover an ejected friend, and they can become a crew on your ship. In addition, if you rescue other players and survive the battle, you will get a rescue payment from the rescued pilot's ship insurance company once you land at the next planet. Space rescue and recovery is standard on all ship insurance policies. Okay, so your insurance pays for it. That's good to know. Let's see if that happens. So right now, they're yanking it out of your wallet.
If that happens.
Yeah, it's coming out of your
wallet. First I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's coming out of your wallet right now. So who knows, right? Okay. What happens if sure.
There will be different tiers of insurance too, so keep that in mind.
That's true.
So that's probably what they're alluding to here. Yeah, different tiers. There will be different tiers of insurance, and the LTI that most people are clamoring for to get on their ships. That is just the most basic.
That's basic.
Tier
I won't pay
Right.
for that. Yeah, you have to upgrade.
Right. Okay.
It'll just get your base ship back.
What happens if I'm captured rather than rescued? If your escape pod is captured by another player or NPC, your game will continue, but there will be penalties depending on your situation. If you are a criminal and are delivered to a prison planet for instance, you will need to pay off the authorities to escape. If you are sold into slavery, you will need to buy your freedom. That's a promise I've heard
about
before.
That part.
Yeah, that's a promise I've heard. I've heard that promise before.
Line, that last line, I must have blinked that one from my memory. If you're sold into slavery, wait, what?
Younique fastcart is missing my joke. He completely missed it. You see that? I said I've heard that promise before, fastcart.
Yeah.
Oh God, he still doesn't get it. Okay, never mind.
No.
Slavery joke. Slavery
Move
joke.
on.
Slavery joke.
Okay.
Anyway.
My name is Kuta Kante.
So
quiet, Toby.
You know, I don't know. I don't know. This has come up before. Oh, look at Colossal. Now y'all getting mad at Hurston. Yeah, we getting mad at Hurston. All right.
Yeah, it's the most slavery-oriented
For
planet
real.
in
Absolutely. They'll be selling you into work over there. This is interesting though.
With this plastic bag on your head.
Yeah, CIG did show us some stuff though. The prisons, the local authorities have the detention areas at all of the LEOs now, right? All of the orbital stations have where you guys see the javelins and stuff parked, those are security areas. And if I'm remembering correctly, the idea is that if you capture somebody on a bounty, you could bring them there and turn them in there. You don't have to fly them to Klesher, you just take them there. But here they're saying that, you know, it's interesting you talk about paying off the authorities. Because right now you have to pay them off by working in the prison system. I'm not sure what that means later on, if it's going to be that same type of thing where you have to work and pay them, or whether they're talking about sliding some money under the table. I don't know, but we'll have to see where they go with that.
I'm guessing they'll have different prisons will have different ways to escape, because right now all we have is Klesher, so different systems will have different prisons, and each one will have their own unique, no pun intended, unique way of interacting and getting out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did mention that there will be other prisons too. Absolutely. Okay. Almost done here. Are you concerned that the fear of permanent death will scare players away from combat? No. We're building a combat game and are going to do everything possible to encourage players to dogfight and otherwise battle each other. In most dogfights, even if your ship is destroyed, you won't lose a life, as it's very likely you will eject in time. Waking up in a med bay with a new limb should be a rare occurrence, unless you really like to live on the most dangerous and unregulated parts of the galaxy. The fear of permanent death will cause some anxiety, which will add to the overall experience, but it will be more than countered by the potential rewards. In a world where everyone is vulnerable, no one has an advantage. Okay. What do you guys think? Do you think?
We'll see about that.
I mean, there are games, like I was mentioning about Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, whatever, that it was too hard for people. I liked it. I'm old school. I'm from back in the day. You put 1 quarter in, 3 lives, it's over with. That's it. A lot of people felt that game was too tough. Do you think that kind of mixing a little bit of this old school and new school, I ask you guys, do you think that there'll be people who will dig it, or you think that there'll be some people who say, that's too punishing, man? I worked on this character for a freaking 6 months and that goes.
Well, the game's not out yet, so it's they'll trial and error it and adjust it as needed. But I think it's a good thing, because it gives you both options. There are the times where you might decide to be the true hero, and I tell fastcart, take off, I'm gonna hold these guys here to the end, right? And I might actually die. I gave up my life for that, for him to escape, for whatever reason.
Sacrifice will be remembered.
That's an interesting idea.
But there's other times, like my mom said, a good run is better than a bad stand any day. So
yeah, that's you
generally want to do that too.
That's an interesting idea. Somebody who'd be willing to give up one of their lives. That's
what soldiers do today. Now they jump on a grenade, right? So everybody else can talk. So there's going to be those situations, and I like that you have the flexibility to do that with this system.
Yeah.
Or there'll be some people saying, if you give me 10 million UEC, not only UEC, but UEC after 1.0 comes out, I'll sacrifice myself for a year. There may be some of those type of people.
No time to negotiate.
They try to negotiate.
Negotiate whether you're gonna live or not in a battle sequence. Who's gonna stay? You pay me 10 million, I'll stay. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's gonna be doing that. Maybe, I don't know. Some people might. Who knows?
Some people might. Depends.
I guess so. I guess I shouldn't say no to that. It could be.
Yeah, I mean, the world is filled with different people who have different kinds of
Yeah.
I like options.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. That's that. All right. Let's see. What's this next one? Oh, I already created a backstory for my character. I don't want them to die. We're letting you know that these plans are early so that you can incorporate them into your characters. Note that your next of kin need not be family members or anyone hoping to role play a lone wolf character. Okay. Pascal, why don't you talk a little bit about why people used to think about the family inheritance stuff? because that was
Because
thing
around
back in
the
the day.
same time, there was another document talking about game packages, and people just to break it down, game packages are different from standalone ships. A game package includes a copy of Star Citizen or Squadron 42 back in the day, but Star Citizen is more relevant in this aspect. And for each game package that you own, it's kind of like not a backup character, but you can make it as a next of kin on your account. So if your character does die a permanent death, it'll your ownership of your ship and most of your reputation will go on to your next of kin.
Now, I'm curious, Younique, as to whether that has changed now, because you know how when we create our characters, we can create multiple characters, in the character creator. So I'm wondering now if it would be more of I can create another character in there, and if my main character dies, I could transfer it to one of those. I mean, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just wondering how this transferring to a new character thing happens, right? If my character finally dies.
Like different character faces, profile looking stuff,
that's what I
but
mean.
I'm not sure that that's an actual different character in the game. Do they get a new name as well?
Right. When you create, no. I agree. Don't get me wrong. I agree with you. I'm saying, like right now, I can make multiple faces, right? But and with different names, they can have different names, right? But
yeah,
at least those faces can have different names. I'm just wondering. I don't know. I'm still having issues with. Do I have to have another account in order to do the inheritance? Because here they make it very clear. They say you do not have to be a part of that person's family.
Right. Yeah. I think it's more like the name you're using gets KOA.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
KIA.
You can't use that name again, probably, right? You can't come in with a different name and everything. Okay, yeah. But and they said that you're supposed to be able to keep some of your. They're going to talk about in the video about what you can keep, about what gets passed on, because there is some things that get passed on. When we watch the videos, they're going to talk about that. Okay.
Yeah. I just still log into your same account, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Right.
Your character name kind of goes away, so you become Griffin
something else
Junior.
Yeah. I just dropped a link in chat and in our Discord. This is a document from 2013 also, but September, and the other one is from February. So that's a 9 to 7 month difference between the two. So this is the clarification on what what I talked about with multiple packages, and like if your character dies and your next of kin. So that's what that is.
And also remember 2013 for both of these documents, y'all. Both of them. Okay, both of them. All right, last question.
You're a long way from that date.
Will you need to play through Squadron 42 a second time with a new character? No. Everything you earn from Squadron 42 the first time will pass on in citizenship credits, startership, and the like. If your beneficiary has a citizen, his or her status will pass on down to you as well, with a probation period that you have to perform some action, mission, job to keep the citizenship in good standing. You will have the option of playing a second campaign if you so desire, but it is not required. Okay. All right, we took in a lot there, a whole lot. Let's go ahead and jump into these first videos. Now, the information we gave you guys was from 2013. Fastcart just gave you some more information from 2013. We are going to jump 5 years forward. This is a calling all devs. It's going to be Disco talking with Todd Pappy. And it's when they were used to do like the little just small segments where Todd's going to give some basics of it, but the one we watch after that is going to be much more detailed. So let's look at this first one here.
We got a question for you. This is an oldie. This is an oldie but a goodie. Death of a Spaceman. Now the question reads, we've not heard much regarding the Death of a Spaceman mechanic since it was first introduced. Why should, and you should read about the Death of a Spaceman, we're going to put the link down below, it'll be in the thing. Why should non-role players care about that final death?
I don't know if non-role players will care about that final death. I think non-role players will care about every single death. Just like I think role players will care about every single death. And that's just because of the items that they could be losing at that time. Now, if they become attached to the character and the way that that character looks, then I think that will influence more of their feelings towards losing that character. But again, through basically their customizing of the character, I'm sure that they can get him back pretty close to that, looking pretty close to that point.
Okay. So just as a quick follow-up for anybody who is not familiar with the Death of a Spaceman mechanic, and I encourage you to read it. We're not going to go through the entire mechanic here. Give me just the nickel version of the Death of a Spaceman.
It's permadeath, but the idea is that you pass on your belongings to your next of kin. And with Death of the Spaceman, the idea is that you can die, so many times and basically be revived, but you've lost a lot of your equipment that you took out on that journey. And you can be revived and then you'll be damaged. It'd be similar to like Luke losing a hand or basically Thor losing his eye kind of thing. Spoilers for people. So especially Luke losing his hand, that's a good spoiler. From there, you basically have your body adjusted and modified, and you get older through the game, and it's more just looks and I don't think it'll affect your reflexes right yet or anything like that, or stamina, but then there'll become a certain point in time where you basically have to create a new character, and your old character dies and passes on, and now you're playing your new character, and it won't have all the scars and be battle worn, old and jaded like we are. It'll be the new young pups.
Gotcha. And just to assuage any fears, because this will be the first time many people have heard about that. We've gained a lot of Star Citizens since the Death of a Spaceman article was first published. When you talk about lose items, you're talking about losing the items that you have physically on you at that time. The stuff in your bank or in your hangar or whatnot, those bequeathed to your new character.
Correct. It is basically about your local inventory and what you take out on. Let's say you die going and exploring a sun. Okay, well, you go explore the sun, or go and explore, let's say a jump point between Pyro and Stanton. Mm-hmm. If you die in there, then you're losing the equipment that you took on that journey, and we'll have to worry about. Is it there for X amount of time? So there, if you revive and you hurry back there, it might be there. That's something that we would still need to work out, but the idea is that you lose that, and so you want to be careful about what you're doing. We want to create that sense of urgency of I want to stay alive. I don't want to lose what I have.
Gotcha. All right, and of course, like I said, that's only the nickel version. We're going to encourage you to read the post. The post published several years ago. It's still our intention. We had our concierge party just a couple weeks ago, and that came up twice in the concierge party, and your sentiments just now echoed Chris's sentiments that he gave at the party. So we still
fantastic.
Confirm. Yeah, just in case you were wondering if you were still on track, you're still on track with exactly what Chris said to backers 2 weeks ago. So check that out, guys. It's still a good read, still an important read about the future design of Star Citizens and your player in the universe. So Todd, thank you so much. I'll let you get back to work.
All right, take care.
Take care, man. See ya.
Alrighty, miss seeing that guy.
Yeah.
To give some basics there, right? About that. Any comments you guys got on anything he said? Because like I said, we've got a much more detailed video too. Is there anything that stuck out with you guys?
I can't believe Luke loses his hand.
No.
What?
Go ahead, Younique.
Oh no, I think he just laid out the basics.
Yeah,
pretty much. And that there are still some holes that they've got to fill in. And again, that'll happen as we play test through the different versions as they come out and complain or give them the thumbs up that we like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is from 2018, so this is 6 years ago. So, I mean, they're constantly change. The stuff that they may have in mind at this point, or even in the 2013 document, may change. So don't get too attached, or don't say they promised this or they didn't fulfill this, because game development is based on iteration. So the stuff that they have in mind here may not be come to fruition, or maybe come in fruition in a different way.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look at the next one then. This next video is, we're going to jump again in time. This time we're going to jump 1 to 3 years later, from 2018 to 2021. This video is with Richard Tyrer and Chris Roberts. And as you guys know, Richard actually stepped into the role of Todd Pappy, and his position, who's overseeing the persistent universe, and they do a much more detailed Calling All Devs. We'll put the link in the chat for you guys if you guys want to check this out a little bit later, but we're going to watch this one and then we'll be right back. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's do our commercial break, because we need to do a commercial break. Yeah, it's right at the top of the tower. Okay, so we're going to take our commercial break real quick. And we got a 1 minute commercial that we're going to show you guys. And then when we come back, we're going to watch this video with Tyrer and Chris Roberts. Okay? Okay, we are back. It is a commercial, and we just want to tell you guys, those of you who are watching us, if you're seeing us, that means you're a supporter of the Soul Citizens. Thank you guys so much. As always, we really appreciate your commitment and your continued support of what we do here amongst the Soul Citizens. We are 3 people away from hitting our 3,000 follower mark, so we're going to see if we can pick up those 3 people tonight. We've been trying for the last few weeks and we haven't been able to do it, but we'll have to see what happens. But again, thank you guys as always for supporting us, whether it's through follow. Yeah, whether it's on Twitch, YouTube, or Patreon, we definitely appreciate it. And I think that's about it. We're going to get into this video in a couple seconds here. 14 seconds and counting.
Yeah, you said the next video is from 2021. I have the one from October 30th, 2020. Is that the right one?
Yeah, that's what it says, but I think that they said something about, I don't know, I had 2021 for a reason. Right? Yeah, but there was a reason why I had 2021. I don't know, we'll see. I'll mention it when we get back in here. Okay, we are back, and we're talking about whether this is 2021 or 2020. It's one of those 2 years, but I thought it was 2021. But we're going to let you guys watch this now, and we'll talk about it when we get back. So let's get it started.
Hey everybody, welcome to Calling All Devs, the series where we take questions from you, the Star Citizen community, and pose them directly to our developers. On this show, we got something a little different, a little special. It's October, it's Halloween time, it's spooky time, and we, of course, are going to talk about Death of a Spaceman. Now, Death of a Spaceman was first introduced back in 2013. We're going to get the update on where we're at now, where we're going forward, and to do so, we have 2 esteemed guests with us in no particular order. We got Richard Tyrer from the Core Gameplay Group. Hi, Richard.
Hello, how's it going?
And this is Chris, right?
That is right.
Chris?
The reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated, is what I would think would be appropriate.
It's been a while since we've chatted. So this one's probably going to go a little bit long. Whatever. We're all very loquacious. So I'm going to sit back. Let's jump into this. Death of a Spaceman, as a primer, let's introduce it to people. We haven't talked about it in a while. Just, what is it?
The idea with Death of the Spaceman is to try to get some kind of meaningful consequence to dying in the game. So like most games you play, modern games anyway, you die.
I'm gonna stop the video real quick. Thank you, Yo Meg. We appreciate you. Thank you, Double Doggers, for stopping by. We appreciate you guys so much sitting in with us. We're talking about Death of a Spaceman Revisited, talking about what's going to happen to us in life and death in Star Citizen. Meg, hope you had a great stream. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for thinking of us tonight.
You.
All right.
And also, we're looking for two more followers. So if you haven't followed, try to hit the 3,000 mark.
We're almost there. Actually, we just got another follower.
Give us a few more follows.
Here we go.
And yeah, Meg, it was a great. Thank you for talking to me a little bit on your stream. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, let's jump back into it.
Happy to be here. A few seconds before you die, and you keep on doing it again. So it doesn't really feel like there's much consequence to dying, and a lot of times your gameplay approach is pretty sloppy. I mean, like, I know when I'm playing, a standard FPS shooter in the story mode, I just keep blasting into people. I don't really think about it. I die, I start again. Whereas if you play, a game like, say, for instance, Demon Souls, all the years ago, and all the ones past it, there's real consequence. I mean, you die, and you've got to fight back through all those enemies. You've lost all the experience that you've gained, the souls in the case of Demon Souls. But the thing with Demon Souls, and it was one of the things I was playing. It reminded me of the good old, the days in the 80s and the 90s when you'd make games, and dying had a real consequence. You wanted to finish your level before you died, or else you had to do the level again, right? So and consequently, when you finished the level or achieved something, you really felt, proud and happy doing yourself, which is definitely, I think one of the mechanics that makes Demon Souls and its subsequent games, both infuriating and rewarding when you manage to do it. So kind of the idea was like, what kind of consequence can we have in our persistent universe in terms of, how do we encourage the players to stay alive? How do we encourage the players to keep their ship or repair their ship intact? We don't want people to just go, oh, I got a scratch, I'm just going to respawn in a perfectly, pristine state for, the character or the ship. And so Death of the Spaceman was sort of an idea to give an association with your player character in the game, in terms of this is who you are, and you want to keep yourself alive as possible, as much as possible, and identify with your avatar as an actual real person and character, and you care about, and you want to keep alive. And then, finally, when, you've had one too many close calls or lost one too many battles, you no longer can be, resuscitated, and you have to pass on essentially to your next of kin, which will have you call out basically who your next of kin is when you're sort of doing your character creation. And that idea is whether it's passing it down to your son or your daughter or a relative or a friend or whatever it would be, you call that out, and when that does, your possessions and reputation kind of pass down, but not all of them, right? So there's always there's inheritance tax, and there's the sins of the father aren't fully invested on the son, but there's a little bit of that. And so, the idea would be, you would want to, live as long and a healthy life as possible before you pass on to your progeny or whatever. And so that was the inspiration of Death of the Spaceman, to really give a sense of, kind of close association with your avatar and your character. And, if at the end of the day, you've got to be there at your, essentially, the God view of the funeral of the character that you spent a year or so venturing around Star Citizen, there should be a tear in your eye when it happens. And so that was the goal. And so it was really a mechanic of how can we do that inside the game, inside our science fiction setting, which was, coming up with this concept of, in the future, with all the medical science we have, in states that you may consider you would be dead now, you would not be able to be brought back to life or repaired. Potentially we could do that in the future, but maybe we could only do it so many times. And so, in some ways, it's a little like the old school of you've got so many lives, right? And once your lives are done, the game's over. And the concept was that the maybe the more the worse the death, you're in some big fireball. That's more serious in terms of the lives you lose off your character than it would be if you were down and bleeding out and someone came and got you and managed to repair you, fix you up in the medical table or a hospital. And the idea would be, you would want to not run out of lives, and potentially there could be things you could do over time, go get some gene therapy or whatever that maybe add a life back to you or whatever. But I'm talking lives in a gamer sense here, but in general, we're trying to put it inside the fiction of the world. But the idea is to have real persistence to your avatar and wear and tear. It's also one of the reasons why we've got things like wear in the game. It's essentially one of the things that we have for equipment, we're going to have for characters. You're going to get older, things are going to get old, and all of that. We have parts of that in the game, but it's not fully working. But that's all systems that are on the plan, or we need to turn on properly, because that's part of the problem with what we're doing right now. Is we're building this incredibly complicated, interconnected sort of simulation system, and not all the pieces are there quite yet. So even though we built some of the pieces and we can functionally do stuff with them, because the other pieces aren't there, the whole system doesn't work yet. And that is actually one of the challenges of building a game the way we're building it, sort of while people are playing it and we're building it. Death of Spaceman is a good example, because it's something that I talked about at the very beginning as a core concept. It's always been a core concept, but we're only just now getting around to starting to implement the actual functionality and the gameplay features that will enable it. And I think when you have it, that will make people behave very differently in the verse, which is going to be super cool.
Yeah. Now, you buried the lead there at the end. That's big news. We are now beginning the process of actively putting this into development. It's been this idea, it's been this core tenet of Star Citizen's character since it was first introduced. You just gave us a wonderful refresher, so the page is still on the website. If you haven't read it, you want to read even more detail, you can check that out, but that basically brings everybody up to speed with where we're at here. Now, Richard, we are beginning the process of putting these things into active development, of that process where we're going to start working on it, start testing these ideas, building our Tier 0 implementations. Where do we start?
So, well, we've already kind of started. So body dragging was the first feature that we released that kind of gave you the premise to be able to manipulate, dead bodies. But as Chris calls out, death is going to be a really important factor in Star Citizen. Now death, there's kind of 3 deaths along the spectrum. There's kind of what we're calling like the down state. So that's kind of like when your health has gone to 0 and you're there. And when you're in that scenario, you'll be able to kind of choose to kind of stay there and be like, okay, I need my buddies to come and rescue me. I need the, law enforcement to come and help me, or maybe I've paid for some insurance that rescues my body or something like that. Then there is the kind of like you've died in terms of you've given up the ghost, nobody's coming. You're like, okay, that's it. I'm leaving that body there, and I'm going to go back to a hospital and be revived. But that's kind of part of your DNA. That DNA is kind of going to be reimpregnated into essentially a clone of you. And then you'll be able to then go back to your location, and you'll be able to see, your dead body there. And as long as nobody's been there, you'll be able to retrieve your gear and so on and so forth. And then the third aspect in terms of like you passing on to your next of kin and that kind of thing. So what we're actually evaluating now is kind of how this is integrated into kind of like the core healing gameplay and the actor status. So we already did kind of some of the actor status with, temperature in terms of hypothermia and hyperthermia and things like, starvation and things. And what we want to do now in terms of the next iteration of this is what we call like the healing and actor status T1. And what that will do is introduce drugs. So you'll have a blood drug level and you'll be able to manipulate things, but it will also introduce all the different statuses that are surrounding you as a character. So for example, when you're in battle and you take a really bad wound to the arm, you might say, okay, I've got a fracture, so my arm, I've got a permanent fracture. I'd have to go back to the hospital to get that repaired. Otherwise, I'm going to start to suffer some status effects that is surrounding that. But if you keep taking damage and you keep taking more damage, that fracture might turn into an actual break, and then it might turn into actually coming out of your arm kind of thing. And the level of that status will dictate the level of cover and level of healing that you need to go and basically get that healed. So you can go to, a med bay and get them repaired, but it also allows other people to act as like support roles and come to help you. And, let's say you've got a really bad broken leg, which means that you can't walk anymore because you haven't just like fallen over and taken a little scratch. You've repeatedly taken damage in your leg and not gone you've not gone to heal it, because medipens, for example, will no longer just be like, oh, I'm a medipen, I'm full health. You will have these permanent statuses like hypothermia and hyperthermia. And so you'll have to have, those will only be able to be removed when you go to these locations, either a medical bay in a ship or a medical bay at these hospital locations. So when essentially you go into that downed state, that's where body dragging will come in, so that people can come in and drag your body back to the medical facility. We're going to have obviously the medical gun in terms of the multi-tool attachment. We'll be able to inject essentially the material that's inside the medipens, but a stronger version of that. So the medipens will basically turn into something that is kind of stabilizing you in the moment. You'll still be able to like replenish your health, but if you've got a bleed or something like that, it'd be like a clotting agent that stops that bleed, and that kind of allows you to get back to safety. And at that moment in time, you can then go, okay, do I want to push on, but I've got this status effect that's causing, if I go back to the fracturing arm, my weapon's now swaying more, and similar to how we had the eyeball effects for the other things, and that progression of the active status T1 in terms of the different limb statuses that you're going to have in terms of whether you've got a traumatic brain injury, whether you've got leg injuries, whether you've got arm injuries, whether you've got internal bleeding in terms of your organs. The level of those statuses will basically go up and go up to the point of view where you're like, I can no longer function now, and I need somebody to come out. And you'll have plenty of opportunity to back out. So it's not going to be something that's going to be like, oh, hello, you've broken your legs, and that's it. It's going to be something like the other active statuses that is like, okay, you're going to have junction points where you can make a decision where you're like, should I go on? And it's that moment like in the Arctic, I'm close to the edge, but I might lose my toes. So, if essentially what we're working on right now is that kind of like healing circle and that healing gameplay. And it also allows that cooperative gameplay that when you do go into this down state, which covers like it's the first version of the 3 death states kind of thing, that's the state where you really you don't want to go to the next stage, because as soon as you go to the next stage, that is what Chris touched on in terms of like, it's almost like the DNA integrity, because you're going to go to the hospitals. When we release this, it'll be your hospitals will be live in the locations. You'll be able to go to these hospitals and almost like download your DNA matrix into the hospital database and say, okay, like if my body is unrecoverable or my friends can't get to me, then I'm gonna kind of die and have to be recloned into this body. That my DNA is gonna have to be re-imprinted into this shell. And during that process, that's the process where your DNA can kind of fracture or kind of lose some of its integrity. And that is kind of what Chris touched on in terms of like you're losing a life in terms of gameplay terms. So, and that is what's happening as it's being imprinted into you. And depending on the manner of your death, and depending on like, if you've just been ignoring all of these statuses and all of your arms don't work and your legs don't work and you've got a brain bleed, some of that DNA integrity as it's being injected back into your body can be re-inherited from those basically systemic statuses that you've had. And that means that you might come back in your body with a prosthetic arm, or you might come back that your eye color has changed, or you're not as tall as you used to be, and because there's something that's gone wrong with that DNA imprinting. So that's kind of what we're working towards now in terms of that hospital healing gameplay loop, active status, the extension of the active status system that we went live with before, and obviously body dragging and all of that kind of setting your spawn point in terms of game terms and the live. That's the stuff that we're working on right now. And to be honest, that's going to be a significant change in how people play the game, because when you go to the next or the third stage, where you're shedding your tear, I'm not shedding my tear at the character I've lost. I'm shedding my tear at the inheritance tax that I've just been levied. And it's at that stage, that permanent death where you're having to pass on to your next of kin, where it is the sins of the father. You're still going to have some of your reputational statuses, but they may not be as high as they were, because it's like, your dad was part of XYZ, but you're going to have to prove yourself. And so and that kind of loop is a really unique aspect in terms of an MMO, and that really ties into that death has a real meaningful consequence. Like in Demon Souls, the amount of times you get to the boss and you're like, you get to that 1%, and your palms are sweaty and you're moving the mouse and you're like, no, that all of a sudden changes. When you get to the edge of that cave and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to go in there, and if I find something in there that's not friendly to me, then I'll just respawn. No, now it's going to be like, well, if I respawn, what happens to my ship? And am I going to lose my gear? I'm going to have to come back to it, because obviously physical inventory ties into it, and then will I lose some of my DNA integrity? And how's that? And all of a sudden, it changes the choices you make along the journey that you're going on, and that is critical.
Yeah, one of the other things we're doing is that we're not going to be despawning player bodies anymore. So when you die, the body that's there and all the equipment will stay there. So if you end up having to be sort of recloned, you could essentially go back to where you died and recover some of your stuff and see the skeleton of your previous incarnation. But the other thing I would say is that the cost of sort of the new life, basically, and you're only going to have so many of these because they degrade, is much more than getting rescued or having someone come and grab you and fix you up. So there will also be an economic incentive to live, to essentially not just go, oh yeah, I'm just going to respawn, because A, you're only going to get a very limited number of those, and B, they're going to be very expensive. So you would prefer to have other players or your friends or a service come and get you and fix you up. And I think that'll be really useful and important, because like even in gameplay okay, if I'm now exploring in a corner of the universe that doesn't really have a lot of people, my level of risk there is much higher than if I'm in the middle of a really well-traveled area of space. I think in terms of gameplay, things like finally getting around to the full sort of health, death of a spaceman setup and the physical inventory, the gameplay potential and just what's going to happen and the interplay with players is there's not other games that I think of that quite have all this stuff all together to do this at this level of detail. And I personally, I just think I'm super excited to have these come together. I mean, we talked about them for a long time. Obviously, it's taken a while, but that's because we're building something incredibly high fidelity with all this detail, but with all this scope. But it really will change a lot of the gameplay mechanics. A lot of how people are playing the game right now, just you wouldn't want to do. It just wouldn't make sense. And I think that's super exciting.
Yeah. And hopefully you can see some of the method to the madness of the development, because it's not like, hey, overnight we go, hey, let's just add this cool thing. It's like, okay, it's underpinning these things. So when we add like actor status, when we add eating and drinking, when we add physical inventory, when we add the ability to hold things in the hand from the grenade from throw T1, all of that is tying into the bigger picture of what we want to achieve. And that core gameplay loop of, I'm not just stepping into my ship and flying into space and I could just open my PMA and just have access to everything I want. And, there's no consequence. There's no feeling of that you're in the world because of, you have this access to this infinite bag of holding. This consequence of I'm going on a real adventure. The things that I take with me are the things that I have access to. The ships that I have dictate how much storage I have and how much, what I have access to inside those ships. Do I have a kitchen that provides me food and drink? Do I have a medical bay? Am I got room to take a buddy with me? Is he going to wear support armor that allows more replenishment of the medical gun that can revive me when I'm down in the cave and we can get out together? All of a sudden that becomes not just a single player, I've just got access. All of a sudden those shared experiences are the things that make it a true experience. And that is something that all of these individual systems, in isolation, they're really cool. And, we put a lot of effort and a lot of heart into them. And, they're complex because we want it to be scalability on a size of Star Citizen. But when you pull them all together and they start talking to each other and they start, okay, have you got space for the amount of food and drink you need? Have you got space for ammo? What guns are you taking? Am I going to take the grenade launcher? Well, I can only fit so many, magazines of that. Well, maybe I should take an energy rifle because that recharges. And all of those different decisions, all of that ties into making it, that's when all of a sudden you go, hold on a minute, the game was already there. We just needed to have these systems start talking to each other.
I feel like at some point we need to rebrand this to the life and death, and then in parentheses, and taxes of a spaceman. It would be the more appropriate.
Ultimately, we do joke a little bit about, but the goal with Star Citizen is to, essentially it's a virtual life. And we are trying to simulate, or obviously in a more primitive state than the real world, but simulate all the things that would happen. Like naturally you would think, okay, if I'm going to go to the Antarctic, I've got to bring my supplies with me. I got to worry about if I get hurt and all these things that I think create great gameplay opportunities and also great cooperative gameplay opportunities, right? So there's a lot of things that we talked about that clearly, if you're going to be adventuring in a dangerous place, having the equipment and having people with you is probably a good thing, because otherwise something goes wrong, you're by yourself. And so I feel like when we get a lot of, there's been a lot of engineering just on the very low level and some scalable stuff that we have to do to enable a lot of these systems. And, over the next year or 2 years, we've got a lot of this stuff sort of coming online. And I feel like when they all start interoperating together, that it will be an experience like no other. I mean, I don't know another game that does it to the level. I mean, there's some games that do, some really nice. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 is great. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that sort of does elements of this, but I think not to the scope and the level and the detail that we're doing. And that's one of the reasons why it's taking so long. So, I mean, that is, it's definitely taking longer than I'd like it to do. And it's part of my frustration when, people are like, well, where's my gameplay loops? And I'm like, but, it's going to be so awesome. You've got all these elements and, I know the big picture. I know how they're all going to pull together. And it's just one of the things that when you're making a game live, developing in front of people, that people experience you wouldn't normally. Like, normally most game developers will tell you in the old way, so it certainly was when I was making the Wing Commanders and all the rest of stuff, and Richard probably can opinion on on all the ones that he was making, that, the game really only comes together near the end, right? So you work on all these disparate parts, and you do it for years, especially in today's world. People will work on it for years and years and years. And then it really only comes together sort of kind of in that sort of alpha to beta stage. And, we're sort of, I know we say we're alpha, but we still got a lot of features to come. And normally a traditional alpha would be, you've got your, features there, but you don't have all your content polished. And then beta is all content and features are in there and you're working on the bugs. So a lot of it doesn't. I mean, like, Wing Commander, you weren't playing through until, a couple of months before we released the game, and it was all in different pieces. But in the way we do Star Citizen, people see us develop all these pieces in different parts, and they go, well, why you got that? That just seems silly that you're focusing on this aspect over here when I don't have this other thing over here. Well, we have a plan. They're all working. We're working on all those pieces, and when they all come together, it's going to be a great experience. You already there's elements of it now, so you can sort of go around an event, run around the verse, and yes, there's going to be a lot more, but there's already fun stuff to do, and there's the social aspect of it. And I see amazing videos every single day. It's like one of the funnest things for me to see cool videos by whoever. Like there was one that Tarada just did, and on 311 that was shared around here, and there was someone. I mean, the point is, this is really cool stuff that people are doing with the sandbox we're building, even though the sandbox isn't finished. But, whether it's, me or Richard or Todd Pappy or Tony Zurovec, we're all operating at the level of, we see the matrix. We just haven't built all the elements of the matrix yet. But we know it's coming together, and when it's done, it'll be like this amazing simulation. And, our only frustration is because it's not like me and Richard are like, oh yeah, guys, take longer. It's like me and Richard and Todd and everyone else are like, is it really going to take you that long to do that feature? You sure you can't do that in half the time? So we're always on their case. So I know everyone out there is on our cases, but it's sort of like we're on the other way around. But some of this stuff just takes time to build it, to test it, and also to do it when you're doing it in a live game, right? Because we are building it in a live game, so you can't just break everything by introducing a new feature. You've got to make sure the old features work as well. But to be honest with you, it's actually a fun way to do it, because a lot of how we're doing it also informs our development as we go along. Because we've got our big plans, but some of the feedback we get helps tweak how things are coming in, or what areas we'll address, or what things worked well, or what things didn't work well that we need to adjust. And if you were doing it the old way, you wouldn't get that feedback. You'd just basically put it all out there. It'd be your best shot at it, and then you'd be like, oh shit, well, we gotta fix this thing or improve this thing, and so I like it. And also just people experiencing what we're building so far is awesome for the team as well, because the team they get all inspired when they see cool stuff that the community is doing. So there's upsides and downsides to what we're doing, but I wouldn't change it for the world, because I think it's one of the funnest things I've ever done in games, and it's awesome.
You're talking about reading the Matrix, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm the guy sitting here for 6 years now trying to do an online correspondence course, how to read the Matrix. Every week, just, I gotcha. We are at time at this point. The wonderful thing about interviewing either Chris or Richard is that I come with all these questions, and I only ever have to ask one, because then they just kind of hit everything. I'm like, I don't have to ask that. I don't have to ask that. Before we let you go, just one final thing. For some folks, this is going to be kind of a new idea. For many folks, they've been following along with this since 2013. As Richard said, we're building this out actively. We have been. All of these actor feature things are all laying the groundwork. They're all the foundation for this. When this is done, it's not going to be like a big switch. There's not going to be one day there's not Death of a Spaceman, and then the next day there is Death of a Spaceman. These things will come in iterations, just like anything else does. Tier 0 of cybernetics, Tier 0 of hospitals, stuff like that. One last bit of like expectation setting. Without giving dates or anything. What can people expect going forward? How do we go from here? What's the plan from here, generally speaking?
I'll let you take this, Richard, so I don't get in trouble.
Yeah, okay. So what we're planning on working on in the future, so relatively soon, shall we say, is kind of the hospital groundwork. So the hospitals in the locations, the ability for you to be able to go to those hospitals and kind of download your DNA is kind of like your save point, or kind of like the area where you would be respawned. We already obviously have body dragging in and some of the medical bays in there, but what we'll be introducing is active status T1. So that will be drugs. So for example, we'll be introducing some drugs as part of that. So like adrenaline. I think we've already got some black market drugs in there that will tie into this, but also like alcohol. So if you go to the bartender, you'll be able to get drunk, and we'll have, the relevant animations and locomotion sets that tie into that. Because obviously then there'll be a risk reward that you can't just keep medipenning like you can't in real life. You can't just keep popping paracetamol, all of that kind of thing will kind of tie into it in terms of that blood drug level. And that will, if you keep taking drugs, you will eventually, overdose and you'll need to be revived. So you'll have to manage that on that actor status side of things. And we'll also be introducing the healing loop in terms of those being able to revive you from a down state. And obviously that in the DNA integrity side of things. So as you basically die, you'll be able to have battle through revive, so we can bring you back in the same body, and that is obviously you'll be there, but you may come back with you may have a permanent visuals, but that won't be part of T0, the visuals, just to be clear. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're working on, that core gameplay loop, actor status T1, and hospital locations. Those are the three main big kind of like areas that we're trying to push forward on, and hopefully alongside physical inventory, which is we're also actively working on. I mean, I've done multiple talks on, and I think every patch we do something to do with like either updating the UI, and all of that is in along the journey. We've just been releasing small bits, but that will tie into it. So kind of like healing active status, hospitals, and physical inventory, those kind of things will kind of come, hopefully kind of come as one thing to be able to deliver that experience. But if they don't, then we'll make it work as they come. But that's kind of the stuff we're actively working on right now.
All right. And then one more follow-up. Earlier you said that sometimes when you res, you might come back shorter. Were you just giving an example, or are you confirming short characters?
I was giving an example. Definitely not confirming.
People were going to grab onto it, and there was going to be a Reddit thread, so I had to ask. All right. Thank you, guys, so much. I'll let you go. Take care.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
The fast card, you can come back taller or shorter, maybe. I don't know.
I hope I can come back taller, because I'm only 5'2", so that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, let's cover any thoughts that you guys might have in here. One of the things I want to talk about again is we started in 2013. We saw Todd Pappy in 2018. We jump a few years further up ahead. We get to the point where they begin to introduce hospitals, being able to save our DNA. And now the third part of that Richard was talking about is inventory. That inventory has been worked on over the last couple of years, and now we're seeing inventory being changed dramatically as far as what you can carry with you if you want to stay alive in the verse. Younique, I'll come to you first. Any thoughts about this? Because, from 2013 till this point, this is almost 10 years later. Any thoughts you got from what you saw?
I think they've been pretty consistent across the years, and we're starting to see it being implemented here and the impacts coming.
Mm-hmm.
I know one player that I play with a lot, Boytaz,
Mm-hmm.
he hates the idea of this death of a spaceman to no end. He like blinds, like hit him with a ton of bricks, and tell him like,
yeah.
no, you need to watch the show. This has always been there. You're just seeing it starting to be implemented, and he might rage quit.
That's a good point, because there are a lot of players who've come in and gotten used to the way the game plays now, thinking that that's the way it's going to be. I didn't think about that, but yeah, for a lot of players, they may be completely unaware that this is not the game. The game we're playing now is not the way it's going to be later.
Not even close.
Yeah. FC, what about you? Anything in particular?
Griff, I have to admit, I missed a lot of half of the video. Could you start the middle of the video for me? And no, I'm just kidding. One thing that stood out to me was inheritance tax. That's what the penalty that they mentioned.
Wow.
I'm wondering, like, does it depend on where you die at, or where you resurrect to, or will it be consistent across all of UEE, or what if you're not in the UEE space? Like, how would that inheritance tax work then? Or maybe if you're in a gang territory, maybe they'll take more than someone than they would in UEE space. So I'm wondering how that would work. And also,
that's coming from a UEE person, because he don't want the UEE to charge more than the gang, y'all. So don't be paying attention to fastcart, okay?
I'm pretty sure the Hurstons are going to charge the most.
Oh yeah,
right.
Oh yeah,
right. And another thing that occurs when I was listening to Richard Tyler, there are too many ways to die in Star Citizen. I mean, dang.
Yeah.
Something Glazdone mentioned. It's probably going to be almost the last thing that they implement. It'll definitely be implemented before I get my Endeavor, that's for sure. But as far as how soon it'll be, I mean, it's like halfway there almost right now. It's a certain aspect.
A lot of the stuff
is when we get the fully implemented implementation.
Yeah. A lot of the mechanics they introduced, like they said, leaving your bodies behind, being able to retrieve your items, the body dragging, the medical stuff, we've seen that shift, which we're going to be talking about next, because even though we've been talking about the death stuff, we want to talk about what leads to death as well. Chris gave that example. There are bits and pieces here and there, but what's going to be important is when they all finally come together. That's when we're going to see the final result of all this. So it's kind of still hard to gauge it, but you can kind of start getting an idea of where they're trying to go with this Death of a Spaceman. And to Younique's point, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, we'll put the link back in here for you guys so you can read the original document. But this is a whole thing about how we die. That's why in some ways it feels kind of casual when we play the game now. We die and it's like you just wake back up. It's not a big deal. It's like unlimited lives.
More arcade,
yeah. It's unlimited lives, like you're playing in God mode sometimes. You lose some armor, that's about it. But now we're going to talk about your reputation being impacted, your physicality might be impacted in some way. This inheritance tax. There's a lot of dynamics now that will be getting introduced and might make you reconsider whether it's worth doing something in the game, whether that's is it worth going mining in this particular place, or is it worth starting a battle with this particular person in this ship? All that stuff that we don't normally give a lot of thought to now, I think players might really start giving a lot more thought to later. Quick shout out to some people that we missed earlier. It might have been because we were talking or we didn't hear the alarm go off, but to Ops Chief, thank you so much for the sub earlier. Sorry we didn't see that when that came in because it was right at the beginning of the show, maybe when we were doing the video. Corsair Cowboy, Chef Rocky, and Mike63, thank you all so much for the follow. We are just one person short of our 3,000 followers, so if you like what you're seeing, consider clicking on that follow button and following us today. We really would appreciate it. It would get us to 3,000 followers on Twitch. That would be fabulous. Let me take you guys on one more piece here. We're going to skip a little bit into the. We're going to skip a little bit here in the poll. We just hit our follower goal. Look at that, of 3,000.
Thank
Achilles. Is it from Achilles Crash and Burn?
Thank you, Achilles.
What a name, Achilles Crash and Burn.
That's a heck of a name.
It is. And Achilles, just because that is your name and you are our 3,000th viewer, you are going to receive a. Whoa. What is going on with my browser here? It's doing crazy stuff. We're going to give you a Pulse. You can pick between the Pulse or a Pulse LX. So send us...
a box of Raisinets.
So send us your RSI email. You can send it to soulcitizens@gmail.com. Be sure to give us your RSI email. and we will get this pulse out to you today. And let us know if you want the regular pulse or the Pulse LX, whichever one you prefer. Put that in there, or you can DM it to us on Twitch as well if you'd like. But the email is always better, easier to track, and we'll get that out to you. So congratulations, and thank you for helping us reach that goal. Daedalus, thank you for that follow as well. He came into 3001. I'm sorry you just missed it.
Oh,
But we appreciate it. Thank
Dang
you.
it! I was going to unfollow and refollow just to see if I could get that post. But
You
too late
could've
now.
got the
Someone
post.
else is already at 3001.
Yeah. Okay. Let's quickly look at this next item here. I want to get you guys some opinions on. I'm giving you a little back history on this. We're going to first look at let's look at a video. It's a trailer, and then I'll explain why I'm showing you this trailer in a minute. Okay, so here we go.
You're probably thinking I'm a goner. But the thing is, I've died 1,000 times. Because a regen has always been the strategy. Let's do this. One more time.
Okay, now the reason I showed that video is because when the Ursa, I don't know what the deal was with the Ursa, but when the Ursa came out, well, first the Pisces, there wasn't a big deal about the Pisces. The Pisces came out, I'm like, oh, it's okay, it's cool. The Ursa comes out, and in this commercial, there was a line that was said. Do you remember what the line was, Fastcart, that got everybody worked up in the community?
I died 1,000 times. Someone mentioned it in chat.
Exactly. Okay. And people started panicking. There were people who were saying that people in the medical career, this was going to kill that whole career now because there's no reason to have doctors because you can come back 1,000 times. People start questioning the value of the Ursa versus the Pisces. And then CIG says, oh, by the way, the Cuddy Red, you can go back now and start resing in it again. And people flipped out about that. And so I want to kind of go back to something that Fastcart said earlier and something that we keep mentioning, that this is all part of alpha and things are being developed. And we want to remind you and caution you to never get so locked into anything in this game thinking that this is going to be the end product. And people do it. And it's easy to do, especially if you don't understand that this is being developed. And a lot of times we think because it's in live, that that's the final result. So give you an example. Many years ago, the Cutlass Red did exactly what it's doing right now. And then they took away the respawning factor in it. And people went crazy and melted their Cuddy Reds and they felt betrayed and blah, 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 blah. And then in 2024, they bring the Cuddy back and says, oh, by the way, we're putting respawning back in it, right? And so I guess my point in telling you guys is that be careful about the marketing and be careful about making these big decisions because CIG will and possibly and could change their minds either because of their own development or because the community asks for something or analytics tells them that it's better to go a certain way. There may be some things that they don't foresee. They may have intentions, but if they find, and CIG has said this plenty of times, if they think it's better gameplay and will make the game better, then that means they could make a decision. So I want to talk to you guys about these vehicles here. The Medevac and the Pisces. Do you guys own them? Have you used them? What are your thoughts about them?
Go ahead, Younique.
Oh, I own both of them, believe it or not.
Okay.
And since I played on University of Maryland football, red's a color. Not my favorite color, but they're both red. But I did buy the blue paint for the Pisces. But
Okay.
you kind of need them both for different situations.
Okay.
The Urza doesn't have wings, so it's hard to get certain places.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the Pisces, I like flying it. It's a quick little nimble ship. I do bunker missions with it.
Mm-hmm.
Park right outside and set your spawn point and go in haphazardly.
FC, what about you?
I do not own either of them. I do have a Lynx, but that's not a medical ship. But yeah, a medical vehicle. But I'm not into. I mean, I do have an Endeavor. That's probably the closest a medical thing I have. But you know, I don't have either of these. But you know, going back to what you were saying before, Griff, it's all a conspiracy to get us to talk about Star Citizen and you know, drum up interest, because you know the opposite of passion is apathy. So it's all a conspiracy to make us talk about the game more. That's all. That's what it is.
I have the Cuddy Red too.
Oh, you do have the Cuddy Red. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why I got all three of them, but I have them. I'm not a big medical gameplay person, but I have all three of them.
I don't have any medical gameplay ship that I can think of at the moment. No. Yeah. But no. Like I said, this is all. I don't want to say all in the plan, but the Cutlass Red was always designed to have that feature. The Ursa Medevac, well, it's new, but it's designed to have that feature. So, I mean, they took it away. I'm not sure what the reasoning was, but you know, it must have been some implementation, iteration, something that was going on at the time. But you know, it's brought back to what it was supposed to do, like Griffin said. So, well, I don't know.
Here's my thing. I don't know what it's supposed to do. I'm going to be honest with you, because originally the impressions that we got was that the Cuddy Red was an ambulance. It was there to stabilize a patient and to rush and get them to a medical facility. Then when we got to ships like the Apollo series with the triage series, we had ships that were somewhere in between the ambulance, but also that could provide some type of medical triage to make you better, even to the fact that you could have a tier 3, tier 2, and even if you wanted to modify a tier 1 bed, which is a hospital bed. So then you had the Endeavor, which is a hospital. It's a full hospital, so mobile hospital. So there was always these 3 tiers for most of us who've been around for a period of time. Then they introduced the Pisces. They take away the respawning in the red, introduce the Pisces, and they allow respawning there. And then people who had Reds, which is a more expensive ship, couldn't do the respawning. Then the Ursa Medevac comes out. And then this commercial comes out saying, I've died 1,000 times. Now, that's all marketing, y'all. That's all marketing. Because again, the design document talked about that there would be limited amounts of times that you can come back on a character. So you could come back thousands of times, you're just gonna have different characters. But whether you come back 6 times, 5 times, 11 times, whatever the case may be, have you guys paid attention, not you guys on the panel, talking to the people who are watching us, paid attention to how those ships are designed? Both the Ursa and the C8R Pisces both have a medical station inside of them where someone has to operate the equipment. And you have to ask yourself, why? If it's just going to be something soloable, why can't I just have the screen that's over my bed? That would make sense. All I got to do is just use that whenever I want. This is my interpretation, guys, that the screen that's over the bed is there for you when you get in it to take care of yourself. But I think the standalone position is there when somebody dies. Because if you're dead, you can't push no buttons. Somebody's got to bring you back. I think the automated side to that is just what's there for right now. But if I wanted to see medical gameplay,
you can be incapacitated.
Well, incapped, that's true. You can be incapped and you can't do anything, right? And right. Let's say incapped even. I'll even buy you right. Absolutely right. Even if you're incapped, you can't push the buttons, right? Okay, let me say this. If they decide, this is the thing about it, CIG implied in the early days that if you died or if you had a tier 1, it was like going to be at a hospital. You're going to wake up in a hospital. That was going to be it. Now, I don't know if that's still going to be the case. Maybe not. But I still think, and if you look at how those machines are designed, there are 2 drawers below that panel that open up for something. And the rumor is, or the story is, that that's going to be some type of something that you put inside of there to make the ship work, some type of resource, something, I don't know, a gel, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know, a mojo hand, yeah. I don't know what it's going to be. But there's going to be something that powers that process of bringing people back. Also, if you remember, they put ranges on these ships as far as how far you can be within proximity to even use them. They have either 10 kilometer, 15 or 20 kilometer range. I forget what the range is on them now. Right. So there's a lot of factors. So I don't think that they're done with this whole idea of what's going to happen. So my point is, don't get sold on these ships thinking, oh, this is what this ship is going to do based upon what it does now. I think you have to kind of go with what they've implied, what they say in their brochure, and then let's wait and see, because this death thing is going to be vital to your gameplay. If there's nobody around to bring you back, or if when you want to come back, you have to come back 5-star systems away from where you are, that's going to make a big decision on whether or not you decide, should I come back? Or to Younique's point, if I'm in-capped enough, should I just wait to be brought back? You know, should I wait for my friends to get me? Do I want to leave my body behind? All that stuff's going to be factors for us to think about.
You know what I think?
What you think, buddy?
Oh, go ahead, Younique.
Well, next episode. No. So can you go back to the previous?
Yeah.
So I think you got to look at the size of the vehicles, and what we're not showing is the Cuddy Red or the hospital. What is it, the Endeavor?
The
up
Endeavor,
in space.
yeah,
If you're in a big war or something like that, I look at the Pisces more like, everyone's seen the Vietnam War where the medical helicopters come in and land, right? It's a logistics thing. You're going to want something that's not flying, the Urza, to be going in close to the troops to transport them out, so it doesn't get all shot up by bigger guns on a base or something you're assaulting. Get to the Pisces, right? So your care, it's good enough care to keep you alive to get to the Pisces. The Pisces got a little bit better care, but it's far enough away where it won't get shot out of the sky when they take off to go up to the hospital.
As easily.
So it's a logistics thing, and I think they're patterning, setting that up so you can do that gameplay of doing the full ingress egress of medical equipment with the troops, kind of thing.
Yeah, smaller targets, I agree with you. That's one of the reasons why I like flying starters and stuff, because it's harder to hit them. They're fast, like you said, they get in and out quickly. Again, even with these, the medevac is designed, I think that's the one that's designed to the triage. One of them is armored, and it's a little bit more intense, like you said, Younique, if it needs to go into a more battle hardened area. And then to your point, the Endeavor, which is the big hospital ship, which would be out on the perimeter, right? It wouldn't be like in the middle of something, but it'd be out somewhere out in the distance. I was
going to say,
sure.
I was going to say that this is still alpha. They're iterating. They re-engage that feature on the Cutlass Red. That doesn't mean that it's going to stay there permanently. They may decide to change it, turn it off again. Because I think they're doing it because they want to test the different vehicles and see how players react with them. So don't be surprised if the ranges on like the Ursa medevac or the other ship changes, because it's like 20 kilometers now. Maybe the Ursa will be changed to 5 kilometers or even 10 kilometers or something like that. So don't get attached to how things are now.
Because you can't, we pretty much, because we play with what we have right now, and it's very much solo playable in a content like this. We're not seeing the big war with the Van Duel or anything like that, but I think when the Van Duel actually start attacking Stanton and come to crucify the Hurstons, okay, that you're going to need logistical medical stuff, just like you do with bringing in and replacing the troops, or refresh troops, and refurbishing ships and bringing them back into fights. You're going to have to be able to do that to keep the Van Duel on Hurston, because that's really the only goal, right? Keep them on Hurston so they kill everybody on Hurston.
Yeah, Mistral mentions a good point here. Our characters have a Moby Glass with all its various functionality. Have a specific program integrated that sets off the automated respawn based off the biofeedback from your Moby Glass to your medical Pisces. That's a cool idea. I think
that's a good idea.
But I'm going to do the but to that, though. The but to that becomes, how does CIG balance the game so that people just don't rely on their Moby Glass only and totally kill the idea of group gameplay? That's the difficulty thing. What?
I have another. What happens if the EMP goes off and the Moby Glass doesn't work? What happens? You'll be.
Well, maybe. Well, I don't know if Moby Glasses don't work. We haven't seen that yet. That's a good question. We'll have to go in Pyro and test them out and see if they don't work or something. But my point is, I don't know how we keep enough balance so that we allow room for solo play to do certain things. And then there's that line that says, if you go in solo, you don't have that to rely on anymore. And so now you have to rely on other players. Because if it's something so automated as push a button and it automatically happens, then now that whole side of other people who are into medical gameplay and want to assist and do that, you kind of killed a lot for them. So I think that you can have something like that. The question is, how do you balance it? Maybe it's a matter of range, right? Maybe it's a matter of usage. Maybe it's a matter of you have to pay a certain amount of money to have the Mobiglass app that will allow you to do that. And it takes a lot. I mean, or like a limited program. There you go. Something like that. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. I like the idea. It's just that CIG would have to figure out how do we make it balanced so that there's multiplayer play, but it doesn't also completely leave out the person who solos, you know, so that there's some balance in the game. But I think it's a cool idea. Okay, well, listen, we're getting ready to wrap up. I want to present one last question to these guys, these smart guys that are on the show today. This is something that you guys are familiar with in real life, right? In the medical field, there are these different codings, right? And you guys have heard of code blue. Code blue means when someone is no longer alive. In our game, we talk about the injury type. We talk about tier 3 injury or a tier 2 injury. On this sheet, that would be the equivalent of a green would be a tier 3, a yellow would be a tier 2, and a red would be tier 1. In light of this, and as we start thinking about this as players, and some of us have played the game where we have gotten tier 2 injuries and seen, how a tier 2 or a tier 1 injury literally hurts your character. Certain things you can't do anymore. Maybe you can't raise your gun anymore, or when you're trying to aim, you've got problems, or when you're trying to walk, you can't walk. You know, you're limping, or you're just down on the ground and you're conscious, but you can't move. I want to present to both fastcart and Younique. I'll let them respond to this question, and that question is: are citizens ready to face death? Are they really ready for this stuff that we've been talking about? All the impact, the insurance taxes, the loss of equipment, their body being 3 systems away. You know, do you guys think that we're ready for this? I mean, I know we talk about it, but in light of how we've been playing the game, are we ready for it?
I'll go first. I'm going to say no, and especially me. I'm not ready for it. I'm not speaking for myself personally. I'm not ready for it. It's going to be tough because people are going to be so used to how things are. New players won't have a problem because they won't know how things used to be. But I mean, us old backers, the people who are playing now, are going to have to readjust because every time they make a change, it's a readjustment. And you know, people hoot and holler about the change and stuff like that. They're killing the game. This is the game now. It's not how 1.0 is going to be. So a lot of people need to get that in their head.
Okay. Younique?
I'm ready to experience it.
Okay.
But I know that I'm not ready. I'll be shocked when I get taxed 25 to 30% of my stuff when I actually have a death and move on and you're staring at it going, wow, I had 100 million and now I got 70 million. Yeah, you know.
Where did that money go? Who's taking
it? Who got it? How do I get it back? You know,
right?
Money's hard to get. You work hard to pull it up and get there, and you know, you got insurance to get your ship back. There's no insurance to get your 30% tax back. It's just gone.
It's funny that you would say that because Richard Trier said when you come back and you have a tear in your eye, it's not because you lost your character. It's because of the inheritance tax. And he did say that.
Right.
He really
that's called a clue. Yeah. That's called a clue.
Yeah, he did say that.
He's telling you it's going to hurt. So I think everybody's going to be fine with it. They're going to be expecting it. Everyone's going to have to live through their first actual death and taxation before it kicks in. And hopefully that happens before we get out of beta and there's some reset so you get all your lives back. You know?
Yeah.
So you say, okay, now that you've experienced, you can actually go play the game now.
Wow.
And I don't know about most people, but I have like 4 or 5 game packages. So I have like, that's, my main character and 3 or 4 backups, so I should be good. But I mean, if I go through each of those characters, I mean, it piles up because, like you said, start off with 100 million, and you take 30% off, that's 70 million. But in that case, the guy, you go down to another 30%, so it decreases. But hopefully, in between, there's a lot of time in between those deaths, so you can build up your wealth, what have you. So we'll have to see.
Yeah.
You hope.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever want to hurt somebody, I don't care what it is, you hit them in their wallet, right? And even for the players who may not care, and again, we don't know what the tax is going to be, guys. All we're just basing it around is how real life is and their inheritance taxes and things like that. But CIG, and whether CIG implements that, but again, this video was just a few years ago, and this thing about a tax, we didn't see it in the original design document, but we did see it here.
I heard about it in
Yeah,
letter for
they're
the
fleshing
chairman.
it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I heard about it in letter for the chairman. So I knew about the tax. That's not anything new to me.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but you don't know how much.
Yeah.
So notice
don't
they
know how
didn't
much,
tell you
no.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been a lot. We've covered a lot today, and there's a lot more to this, guys. We haven't covered the whole base, but it's been 2 hours of just us trying to go back and reflecting, get you guys caught up from 2013 to where things are relatively to today, those bits and pieces that are starting to come together to bring back. And we've heard Disco and CIG on ISE talking about they're going to be introducing more information about Death of a Spaceman. I wouldn't be surprised even if when we go to CitizenCon this year, they will start to reach in further into this topic. So I would say keep your eye open for that this year, because it's definitely going to be a game changer for us, for all of us who are playing Star Citizen.
We do have a couple of questions.
Yes, we do. You want to read them? Or you want me to read them?
Okay, yeah, so the first one is from Pop in Space. Do you think it would be cool if funerals were held for a high-ranking player, for example, on a Javelin, in the same manner as Spock in Star Trek II? For the role players, yes, I think it would be cool.
Yeah, but the problem is, Pops, I don't know if you played Wing Commander, but Chris Roberts had that in Wing Commander. When you died as a character, it didn't make a difference what level you were. You got a military send-off. Whether they'll put something like that in Squadron will be interesting as an ode to Wing Commander. But whether they'll do it in the open world game, that's a different story, because that's up to us. They don't intercede in that way for us as players in the game. It's our world basically to play in. So I would almost say more of a situation if you wanted to have a funeral like that, your friends want to send you off. That's up to them. If they want to do that and go out on the hangar and push your body out into space, I mean, hey, they could do that. There's nothing to stop that. But I don't know that CIG would interact into the open world with that. But for Squadron 42, I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like that.
Yeah, I would almost put money that it would be in something like that in Squadron 42. But as for Star Citizen, I think it would be maybe more player control. But I mean, when your character dies, they may have some kind of cinematic to let you know that you're about to respawn in the next of kin. So yeah. I can imagine that. Whether or not it be a funeral, I don't know what kind of cinematic they would put in, but I would expect some kind of cinematic to let you know that this character is dead, so you're going to next of kin.
Yeah. Vectrex, thank you for that follow. Appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the follow. Next question from Jad. Had CIG said anything about PvP flagging to modify the consequences of death? Given that we already master mode for ship, it would seem that PvP flagging would follow the same line of design thinking. I don't know
about any PvP flagging.
I mean, the only thing we read about, I don't know if you were here earlier, Jaja, when the show started, they did talk about some stuff going on in relation to griefing under certain circumstances, but PvP flagging, that's not been something that CIG has talked about. And this goes back to the old days of the PvP slider and a whole bunch of other stuff. I've never really heard them talk about focusing on that in relation to when players die. If you weren't here earlier, they did talk about the fact that if people were to attack escape pods, there would be an automated system that would flag them, because that's kind of considered one of the worst things you can do in the universe. Whether you're in a monitored space like the UEE space, or whether you're in gangland space, you'd have a bounty out on your head for doing something like that. But that's the only level of PvP that they talked about flagging people for. But yeah, that's the only thing we missed. Yeah, no problem, buddy. Yeah, it was earlier in the show. We talked about it a little bit, but it's a good question. Thanks. Okay. All right. Well, that's our questions for today. We got through it all, and you guys were fabulous. We're trying to watch all the stuff you guys are saying in chat, and I saw some pretty fun stuff in there. But we'll see. We'll see how things go as we continue to press through with this thing with the death of a spaceman revisited. So don't forget to read that design document, guys. There's a lot of information here, like I said, that we didn't cover, and it's a pretty big document. Let's talk about what we got coming up. Fastcart, why don't you talk about Soul Talk? I'll talk about voices.
Yeah, real quick, don't forget to vote in the Ship Showdown. That's going on right now. So yeah, take part in that. But Soul Talk, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. UTC. That's where we talk about what's going on this week in Star Citizen. We cover ISC, we cover Star Citizen Live, we cover the sneak peek, we cover this week in Star Citizen. So, and the best thing about that is that you, the community, you get to come in and talk with us about what your thoughts are about what's going on that week. So yeah, tune in or join us for Soul Talk, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Absolutely. And Saturday, next Saturday, I'm not sure if I'm going to be, I've had so many things going on recently, guys, but next Saturday at 2 p.m. is Soul Talk Eastern Time, Soul Voices, Soul Talk, Soul Voices, where we do our one-on-one conversation with you in the community.
You're taking over my show, Griff?
I know I'm not. No, I'm definitely not going to do that. But we're going to do our one-on-one where we talk about items from Spectrum, from Reddit, from the gaming industry. And as we're getting closer and closer to CitizenCon, more and more stuff's going to be coming up in relation to that. But in the meantime, that's on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and you're always welcome to join us for Soul Talk. Oh, somebody did something. Who did it? I didn't see it.
Citizen Shenanigans, subscribe at Prime for 35 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Shenanigans. Thank you so much. All righty. And next Sunday, we're scheduled for this show. I'm going to see. This might change, but I'm going to stick with it for right now. Next week, we have a show called Bounty Hunting 2.0. This is a career that a lot of people are interested in light of all the things that people do in the game. CIG has given us a little bit of information in relation to what's going to happen with bounty hunting, but we're going to try and go into that next week. We're going to talk about what are the tools that you would need, the ships, all those things, strategies, ideas, and a little bit of theory crafting about what it's going to be like to go after the bad guys in for all you Mandalorian folks out there. We're going to be talking about that next week, so hopefully you guys will be able to join us next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, to talk about Bounty Hunting 2.0. I want to give a special thanks to my co-host today, the one and the only Fastcart, and the one and the only Younique. Younique is here again. We're happy to have him with us today. Man, thank you both for being here today. As
I'm
always.
back, people.
Yes,
available. Esther Griffin, if you want me on the show more.
We're going to see more of them.
Has been fixed, and I'm able to actually read now. So
yeah,
we'll have more and more Younique on the show.
Glad to have you back.
Definitely glad to have him back.
Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, we are getting ready to set up for our raid. We are going to raid. This is a new streamer that we've come across, Vari. We stumbled across her this weekend, and she's only been in Star Citizen for 2 weeks, and she's very excited about it. We're hoping to have her on as a guest. So when you get over there, say, hey, I want you to be a guest on the show. So when you get over with Vari, let her know that you came over from the Soul Citizens. And of course, if you like what you see, follow, support her. She's just getting started, but she has a really warm-hearted and fun stream that's very, very cool. So hopefully you guys can do that for us. Until then, thank you, Younique. Thank you, Fastcart. And you guys take care of yourselves, stay safe. And as always, peace, love, and soul. We'll see you later. Take care. Ciao.